You're good. You're going.
Perfect.
Firefighter Jordan Bach with the Springfield Fire Department. This is the fire officer or fire instructor 1 2-hour recording of the class. As you just saw, I just finished setting up the room. I have printed off, I will have 3 people in here with me that I'll be delivering the Forcible entry class to. Printed off 3 tests. I have my answer key that I will have. This is my lesson outline, Forcible entry lesson outline. Went through and took out what I didn't think was pertinent, and I have everything set up ready to go. I'll have a training record provided by the state. Will be on this table up here to the right. Bring in the students now. Guys, look at my room. Wow. Set up for learning.
Is this Chevron?
Oh, we didn't get cooked. Okay. We have to pass around a training record. Be careful on these 3 tables, because I figured out why they were set aside is their legs are broken, so they're basically just staying. Sandwich. Start time. All right, this is the course of Forcible Entry, Chapter 9. Time is all right, like I said, everyone got good lighting? Everyone environment to learn, minus our beautiful crack we have on our street. First things go over, we got fire exit over here on the right, takes you straight outside, where you go back in the way we came, down the hallway. There's another exit out there. We passed the female bathroom and the male bathroom, fully stocked, already checked it. Everything's good to go. Anything else? Anybody got any questions before we start? Typical state class, so we're going to go through a PowerPoint of about 56 slides. We'll go over the PowerPoint. I've got some tools laid out that we'll use. We'll go over them in the class, and then at the end of it, we'll have a short little quiz that we will go over, and then we will either move over here to this door or this door over here, and just one by one go through forcible entry, inward swinging and outward swinging, and that'll be it. I did print off our forcible entry policy for the city of Springfield. So upon completion of the PowerPoint, we will read over and revisit this to ensure that we're up to par and remember exactly what it says. Yeah, sorry about the screen. We turned it on and found it broke. So, forcible entry, chapter 9. We're going to objective 1, describe the basic principles of forcible entry. Let's see if I can move this down here. Okay, a couple basic principles of forcible entry is to do minimal amount of damage to whatever we're trying to force, whether that be a door, window, or anything that we're trying to gain entry into. We're going to provide quick access to the emergency, and we only want to use forcible entry when normal means of egress are not available. So, you know, any building that's on fire, any sort of medical call where the person can't get to the door, anything like that. And in our policy, when we read later on, it goes over what kind of documentation we need to have upon utilizing forcible entry, be it pictures, anything like that. Forcible entry techniques can be applied to rail cars, vehicles, aircraft, ships, houses, business complex, gates, anything like that. Okay. The IC or the supervisor determines, based upon tactics that must be fulfilled, location of the fire, the middle and stage of the fire, the effect of ventilation, and the effort required to do forcible entry. So out of these few considerations, the IC will determine whether or not we need to force entry and at what position on the building we will gain entry, or supervisor, so that would be our supervisor on the rig that day. As it says, wait to be ordered to do forcible entry before, wait to be ordered to force entry before doing so. So that goes back to the IC calling for forcible entry. Forcible entry and ventilation obviously go hand in hand together, because if we're going to force entry on the front door of a house that has a fire going, we're going to change the flow path, and we kind of all talked about that. So, forcible entry and ventilation. The location of opening that adds fresh air to a ventilation-controlled fire can affect fire behavior, flow path. An entry to a structure is ventilation. Control doors and windows to limit fresh air. So, you know, obviously one of the big key points of forcible entry is whenever you force a door, you don't leave it wide open. As soon as you get the door forced and it goes open, we pull the door back, controlling the door. Controlling the window would be the same if we don't break the glass, and it's still possible to control the window. Obviously, we've heard this one a lot before, try before you pry. So obviously he's coming up here trying to handle before he decides to force entry. That's the same way we just talked about windows. Sometimes we can, on the back sides of houses or open kitchen windows or something small people don't tend to use very often, we can find one that's open, you know, be it we're on a massive emergency, medical call, something like that. We can find a window that's open, get inside the house, go and unlock the door. So try before you pry. We're just literally trying to expose minimal damage. Using a lockbox instead of forcible entry reduces property damage, may allow quicker entry, and information may be stored in pre-incident plans and/or our CAD system. City of Springfield, obviously, we have Knox boxes on every rig. We do utilize the Knox box very regularly via medical calls, but Knox boxes, on our pre-incident plans, we have marked on the buildings where Knox boxes are located, and it is in our operating guidelines to go retrieve the Knox box if we have one on the building. Most of the time in Knox box, we have elevator key for the elevator, we have interior door keys to the front door, any sort of pertinent key to that building will be in that box. So obviously that tells you how important it is to get that box before we have to spend time forcing entry.
Where's that box usually located?
Most of the time, the box is going to be located somewhere around the front general entrance of a building, the main entrance where people would flow through. And a big thing that Knox box will have too is, most of these apartment complexes and stuff like that, their sprinkler or riser room is located in its own special room that is most of the time kept locked. So we have stored in that box lock too would be the key to that room to let us into the riser room. General forcible entry considerations. Doors and locks, proper tools, security barriers. Obviously we see security barriers, so that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge for us to get through, and it's going to take different sets of tools. Both sets of security barriers, this one's obviously going to be easier to get through because there's less of a barrier, but doors with locks, proper tools. Some of the tools we have that we carry on the engines would be bolt cutters, Halligans. We don't carry K-12 saws on our rigs when they come on rescues, but those are your two big ones. And then we have a little less minimal damaging tools like the K-tool or through the lock tool or picking the lock tools. Something where we have a little bit more time and can spend some time fiddling with it than just blowing through it. The tools described in the chapter are not intended to be a comprehensive list of tools that may be available, meaning there are other tools that you can carry. It all depends on what you want to carry. Engines carry minimal amounts of tools in Springfield. The rescues carry large amounts of tools for anything. Here's a question. What factors must be considered when deciding where and how to perform forcible entry? So, let's see, what would a factor be that you would have to consider on a house on fire if you want to go through the back door, if you want to go through the front door? So you're trying to decide where to perform forcible entry. So factors would be fire location, like we just talked about, barriers, windows cover or barriers covering doors, things in front of doors. We've run into that with a lot of stuff piled up in front of doors, so we don't want to have to sit here and dig our way into the door. Medical calls would be, you'd look at what door can we do the least amount of damage to. That would be a good consideration to look at. But mainly what you're looking at there is what door is going to be easiest if there's not a fire inside, and then what door would be the least conducive to changing the fire or creating a flowback or leading us directly to the fire. What structures in our jurisdiction might pose difficult or unusual forcible entry circumstances? Obviously, we all have the residential houses in our district that would be fairly easy to force doors on, front doors. This is more so looking at a lot of buildings in one's district would be commercial buildings, some of these older buildings that don't secure quite as well, so people are making sets of security, drop bars and stuff like that. But structures in our jurisdiction that might pose difficulty would be commercial buildings, prison, stuff that's harder to get into. What else did we run into the other day that would be kind of rough? I think I was talking to a guy, and a lot of these marijuana sales places are pretty high security, so I think they're doing their own special sets of secure drop bars and stuff like that on their doors. Anything where people want to get in, I would say. Scribe forcible entry tools. Okay, forcible entry tools is the big one. Halligan. I think the fire department's carried this for a while now, obviously, and I think now the police department's starting to carry some of them. Halligan drop, all solid steel, drop forge. You got the horn, you got the adze, you got the forks, you got the crotch, you have the shoulders. Multi-use tool, a lot of various different ways this tool can be used to force entry. Prying, pushing, inward, outward swinging. Tool we use the most. We have the axe, flat-headed axe obviously. Big-headed axe is not going to strike that tool very well, but we have a pushing tool. This would be a striking tool. Obviously, we're going to strike with the backside of the axe if we're using it in conjunction with the Halligan. Bolt cutters, so this would be simple for cutting padlocks off, gates to get into, access to structures, around perimeter gates. This also comes in handy on your storage units when you just go around and cut locks instead of trying to break everything. When it comes down to always wear appropriate PPE when using forcible entry tools. Striking tools, when you bang them together, are going to be quite loud. So we're going to talk about hearing protection, always wearing eye protection, always wearing helmet, anything in the fire service, wear a helmet. And then we're going to wear gloves too, safety gloves. So those are kind of the basic things you're going to use when you're doing that. When you get into more aggressive tools or more motorized tools, so chainsaws, rotor saws, anything like that, we really need to start our full PPE on, bucker gear and everything. But
Is there a way to connect those two?
the way to connect these two,
So your flathead axe and your Halligan?
we can marry them together and call it the married set. So yes, we place the Halligan over the axe itself, put the axe on the outside, or the inside of the tool, on the inside of the adze and the horn together, and one little gentle hit on the ground, on any exterior, marries them together. And the way to take them apart is you turn them over with the axe handle down, and one little bump, and they come apart. So axe goes into the crotch of the Halligan, and it seats itself together. Sometimes there will be bands around them that you will undo with little shoulder straps for them to carry, but this is married together. It's called the married set, and that tool is carried on any sort of fire and house call that we will go to in preparation for force and entry. So, married set. Hugh Halligan designed the Halligan from let's say 1982. So since we talked about the tools a little bit, we'll go down into, like I said, the Halligan is a pushing pulling tool, more of a prying tool, but we have prying tools, striking tools, pushing pulling tools, cutting tools. Cutting tools, saws, chainsaws. Our chainsaws are rescue, or chainsaws with rescue chains on them fall into that category for cutting anything really. Rotor saw, concrete, metal, anything heavier that the chainsaw will not cut through. Prying tool, that's where our Halligan falls into. Striking tool, sledgehammer, flathead axe. Pushing, pulling, pike poles, trash hooks, drywall hooks, anything like that's going to fall over there into that category. So 4 categories that cover pretty much all of them. What they don't really cover on that 4 categories, I guess, would be, like you're through the lot. I guess it's technically a pulling, but your smaller, less invasive tools. Cutting tools. Powered manually or use another means of powering source, gas motor. No cutting tool will cut all materials. Using a cutting tool on materials for which it was not designed can ultimately damage the tool and endanger the operator. Obviously, if we're talking about trying to cut, if we're trying to cut some sort of thin metal or something like that with a chainsaw, it's not designed to do it. It's not going to do it well. It's going to destroy our chain. It's probably going to be a little bit dangerous to us because it's not designed to do that. So it's hard telling what's going to happen. The chain blows apart. Anything it's not designed to do, we shouldn't be doing with it. Yeah. No cutting tool will cut all materials. True statement. Talked over a while ago, flat-headed axe. So this goes into the striking tool. Pick-headed axe, we all know has a little pick up here. Not really the tool you want to try and use to swing against the alley. Flat-headed axe, same tool, no pick. Both carried the same way. Bolt cutters, I showed you our set of bolt cutters that comes off the engine. Cutting tools, so this is oxyacetylene, cutting thicker metals. You're going to talk about thick rebar, big pipe, I-beam, real thick, heavy duty. I think oxyacetylene torches cut up to, last one was 12 inches, solid steel. And then they actually make rebar cutters. So, a little more specialty tools that you're not going to really typically see on engines, but more specialty rigs. Do not use cutting torch in a flammable atmosphere. Left in there, obviously, flammable atmosphere, spark from a spark plug, stuff like that. It's going to cause a reaction we don't want. Hand saws. This goes into the manually powered saws. Hole saw, drywall saw, hacksaw. Where this is going to be a little bit less emergency when we're going to start using these. A little bit more time sensitive, a little bit more methodical. Power saws, circular saw, rotor saw, reciprocating saw, sawzall laying down there in the front, chainsaw. This is what we mainly use on our house fires, residential house fires, to cut holes in the roof, gain access to boarded up windows and doors, vacant buildings, cutting out walls, anything that we don't really have to have the time to sit here and tear apart piece by piece. We can just take big chunks and go a lot faster. This saw with the rescue chain on has been great. Sawzall down here has interchangeable blades, wood blade, metal blade. So you got to make sure you have the right blade depending on what you're going to cut. You're not going to try and cut through rebar with a wood blade or vice versa. They're designed for their specific purpose, like we covered earlier, and that's what we need to keep them on, is their specific purpose.
What would you use the rotary saw for?
Rotary saws are going to be cutting through concrete. We have metal blades for us. We cut through garage doors, thin walled garage doors, storage units where they have different, puck style padlock that you're not going to use that bolt cutters on. You can go up there, you can grab a hole, cut through the locks, cut the whole door out itself. Metal
bars on windows, something like that.
Cut bars on windows, so gaining access to those over secured windows that we talked about earlier. Metal roofs are getting popular around here, so cutting a sheet on metal roof. Anything metal, a concrete tube, concrete blade on the saw. Power sources, so this is talking about the power sources for these power saws. Obviously, we used to self-contained battery pack gasoline engine, electricity from a generator or outlet. Another one that would be added on here would be hydraulic power. We used to do a whole lot of gasoline engines, and now that we're the battery electrical wave has come on, they make batteries that last for hours and carry just as much torque as any sort of gas engine does now. So Those are becoming more and more popular on rescue saws, and now your sawzalls and all that stuff are already kind of battery powered that we don't have. Now we're seeing battery powered chainsaws and everything else, but hydraulic tools, so that would be your hoe, your ring saw. We have a hydraulic ring saw, so that's out there too. That's kind of getting phased out. So with power saws, we want to be familiar with saws on our department. Always follow the manufacturer's recommendations and SOPs, standard operating procedures. Always use eye, hearing, and hand protection gloves. Forcing any saw beyond its design limitation can result in property damage and or injury. We talked about that, using the chainsaw in a manner, trying to cut thick chunks of metal or anything like that. It's just going to destroy the chain, and obviously not cut because it's not designed for that. Never use a power saw in a flammable atmosphere. We touched on that earlier. Just once again, wear appropriate eye, ear, hand, and foot protection when operating any power saw. Foot protection, steel-toed boots, any sort of boot, heavier duty leather that's going to cover a foot, obviously not sandals, no shoes. Never force a power saw beyond its design limits. Follow the manufacturer's recommendations. Sparks from cutting operations can cause additional fires. Have a charged hose line or portable fire extinguisher close at hand during cutting. Any sort of vehicle extrication that we pull up onto, that we're going to do any sort of cutting on the car, we automatically pull a hand line down on the ground. We use sawzalls on cutting cars. Need to have a hand line down on the ground because we're cutting metal. Metal makes sparks. Portable fire extinguisher too. So a portable fire extinguisher would be our water can we carry, and that's our first off too. In the meantime, we're pulling the hose line. Never use a rotary saw to cut out the shell of any storage tank that might contain flammable vapors. Anyone know why that makes any sense? Because if we're using a rotor saw to cut into a storage tank, which is typically, if it's going to contain flammable vapors, it's going to be pressurized. You're going to have metal tank. So if we're cutting the saw on the metal tank's going to create sparks. Sparks light vapors. So we need to know what we're cutting before we just sink the saw into something. Think any sort of old fuel tank, any sort of tank that's housed that liquid like that. In order for us to cut on it, it has to be bled out. All of the liquid has to come out, and you have to let it air out all the vapors and then refill it full of water to force the rest of the vapors out before we really got to cut it. So that's kind of a in-depth process. We're trying to get into it semi-fast. So fuel tanks on trucks, semis. The blade guards on some rotary saws are not designed for use with carbide-tipped blades, so you need to be sure that the blade is designed. You need to be sure that the saw is designed for the blades used. So we used to run carbide tips on ours, so that's why I left this one in here. Like I said, we're phasing out to our rescue saws though, and all of our old saws that had carbide-tipped blades on it have the appropriate shield on. Out of power tools, now we're going back to prime tools. Our Halligan: opening doors, opening locks, opening windows, moving heavy objects. Obviously, moving heavy objects, any sort of fulcruming type thing is going to gain more leverage, be able to move things a little bit heavier than we can typically just move by ourselves. Opening windows, whether that be prying the window open, trying to do less damage, or just using the tool to strike the window and break it. Opening locks, there's various techniques. You pry down on the lock, see if you can get it to break. Slide your slide your horn of it into the lock, smash down on it. There's various ways we can utilize a prying tool for any sort of forcible entry. Touched on mechanical advantage. That's perfectly right. I did not see it. Where he's trying to show here is this is our, if we're exterior, this is our interior, so this would be an inward swinging door. This is the Halligan he's holding. He's got his fork slid up into the door jamb, and now he's going to come out here to the edge of the tool and push inwards towards that door, which is going to put all that pressure to go inward. So that's what they're trying to show. A mechanical advantage would be, coming out here on the edge of the tool 3 foot using mechanical advantage, then instead of you trying to use a little tool to force that door open without any sort of mechanical advantage, it would be substantially harder. Manual prying tools, crowbar, carried on our heavy rescue. Kelly tool, that's going to be a flat bar, pry bar itself. Halligan, pry axe. That one hidden down there, I think, is the Huck's bar. Yeah, which we don't carry the Huck's bar. We don't have the Kelly tool or the Huck's bar. We have everything else on that page, carried on the heavy rescue. But like we talked about earlier, the Halligan and the flat-headed axe is the married set, so we carry a Halligan on every engine in the city. But manual prying tools. Hydraulic prying tools, older equipment, but hydraulic rams, more so seen in vehicle extrication. They make a hydraulic door opener. We do not have any of those, but that's kind of older technology, but that's obviously going to be hydraulic, not manual. You let the tool do the work, not you. Should move on to pushing and pulling. Pushing and pulling tools, rubbish hook, pike poles, drywall hook, various stages of pike poles. So we have like a little short 2 foot pike pole, and then kind of move up to a 6, 7 foot pike pole, and we go all the way up to 12, 13, 14 foot pike poles. That way, taller guys in residential houses can reach with that. You go to big commercial buildings with higher ceilings, you can be able to reach higher. So we have longer tools. Typically, every engine will carry more than one length of tool. Drywall hook, it's got a bigger flat head at the end, about 4 or 5 inches long, with some teeth designed to sink into the edge of drywall. And then when you pull down, it gets a bigger bite of drywall, because drywall typically breaks bigger than, this little bitty pick is going to kind of cut right through it, so you want to be able to grab a bigger bite. Rubbish hook is at the end of it. It's got a big V, and it's got 2 handles that go, or 2 pins that go down, and you use that to kind of rake the rubbish apart. Be able to extinguish the fire easier than just trying to flip it with a pipe pole, using it like a knife again. Striking tools, sledgehammer, hammer, smaller sledgehammer, maul, the police battering ram, flat-headed axe, and a pick. And the one hidden in here, this would be that's the chisel. And then we have a window punch. The window punch is in here. Window punch, spring powered nail essentially, real sharp edge. You use it and it springs out the nail and it breaks the window. Use that on cars quite a bit. Flat headed axe, the other half of the married set that goes with the pushing or prying tool and Halligan. Battering ram we don't have, but smashes through the door. Short maul. The other big one we carry would be the sledgehammer. Sledgehammer is also a good tool to do forcible entry with. It's not carried necessarily married, because it can't get married like the axe, but it is essentially it's going to operate the same as the flat-headed axe with the Halligan. Just a bigger surface and heavier tool carries more of a blow when you're swinging it against the Halligan. I kept talking about the married set. We're covering the irons, Halligan, flat-headed axe. Call it the irons. Irons, married set. It's all just two different forms of lingo. Explain considerations for forcible entry tool safety. So, number one would be just carrying the tools. Tool's heavy. Like I said, it's solid metal, sharp edges. We have to keep these edges sharp because the door jamb where it comes together, there's, we'd like to see no gap, obviously for security reasons, so we need to be able to get into that gap. So we have to come to a very sharp point. So this edge of the forks here is going to be pretty sharp, and we need to keep them sharp. So we need to be mindful that they're there. Obviously the horn comes to a point, so it's sharp. So we got to kind of watch our point here, and then the end of the adze down here is sharp as well for the same reason, sinking into the door jamb or anything like that. So walking around with this tool you need to be mindful of the three pretty sharp edges of this tool. Same on the axe, flat-headed axe. Blunt side over here, but the center head is going to carry some weight, and it comes out to a point. This point is not razor sharp, but it's sharp enough that we need to be mindful of how we watch it. I think you want to carry this tool, axe head goes in, and you carry it just like this. Always have your sharp edges secured. And also, using the irons or these tools together is a one person or two person deal. If it's two people doing it, when this guy's trying to force this in, which we'll go over later, when he's trying to force these into that jam and he can't quite get it, and he uses a second person to strike. When he's striking two people, that's a massive pinch point with fingers. So you're talking, potential smash fingers or anything else. So on top of it being sharp, when we're using them in conjunction with each other, we have big pinch points. So the back of this axe, sliding down the bar, hitting the shoulders, or when you're over here striking the back of the tool, two big pinch points. So obviously a big one on that one is going to be helmet and gloves, and both these partners need to be working in conjunction with each other and staying on top of knowing where each other's hands are, everything else. Other safety considerations, saws. Saws are going to be spinning. We have to watch the chain. Chains grab, and saws don't know whether they're cutting wood, metal, or us. So saws need to be mindful that when you're running saw, it's two hands, know where the blade is, know where the chain is. When we're putting saws down, they need to be stopped. When we're carrying them, transporting them, running, engine brakes on, or clutches engaged. So those are safety considerations when operating the tools and saws. Other safety considerations for forcible entry tool safety is, I guess if you're thinking about the tool or the saw, not utilizing the saw for something it's not designed to use. So cutting something, the saw is not designed to cut. Preventing injuries when using tools. I just talked about some of that, kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but wearing appropriate PPE, use only undamaged tools. So, we use a pipe pull to do some pushing or pulling. Fiberglass handle's cracked, then the tool's obviously going to break if we put too much load under it, which could potentially damage or hurt ourselves. Same deal, the axe head is not properly seated on top of the handle, and the axe head goes flying off if we're swinging it. That's why we check our tools out every morning, ensure that the tools are properly maintained and in ready state to be used. If we find something broken, we report it. Use tools for their intended purposes only, and position yourself so that weight is balanced on both feet. So when we're talking about weight being balanced on both feet, when we go to strike with a tool, we're talking about a good solid stance and a good solid baseball swing. We're not trying to one arm swing this thing. We're not trying to do something awkward. Good solid stance, two hands, and and we're giving a good, hard, steady blow that is in control the whole time. Same thing when it goes to prying. We don't sit here and get this sunk into the door jamb. We're trying to pull to us and we're sitting here jumping. We want to make sure we have 2 feet on the ground, solid base. Any sort of good body mechanics we need to be utilized when we're using those tools. Ensure you have room to operate the tool properly. Be aware of sudden release of energy when door or wall is opened. Ensure other personnel are out of the immediate area. Be aware of the environment to prevent gas or vapors from igniting. Don't use saws in flammable atmospheres. We covered that a couple times. Ensure other personnel are out of the immediate area. Talk about swinging that tool. That's a good one to talk about. You need to be conscious of your swinging area. You don't want to come rearing back and hit somebody else with it. Sudden release of energy when door walls is when walls are open. Whenever we finally break through that door is going to go swinging with force. So we need to make sure that we're kind of paying attention and not just being reckless. Tool safety. Become familiar with the tools you will use. Keep tools in properly designed, designated spaces. Make sure tools are secure, riding on the rig. Repair and replace damaged tools immediately. Do not strike a tool's handle. Do not use a prying tool as a striking tool unless designed to do so. Talk about repairing the tools if they're damaged. Make sure the tools are secured on the rig. Need to be, if they're mounting to the wall, they need to be secured. We don't want tools just flopping around in the cab every time we hit a bump. All tools have a designated area on the rig, so they need to be kept in place. Safety with power saws. Match saw blades to the task and materials to be cut. Never force a saw beyond its designated limitations. Always wear a full PPE. Fully inspect saw before and after use. We find a broken saw or find something faulty with it, we need to report it and fix it before it's used again.
Do all saws take the same fuel?
Most small engine saws are going to be 50 to 1 oil to gas. So we need to make sure the saw that we're using, we know that has the right fuel. I think some typically will be marked. Sometimes we have these fuels stored right by the saw so we know, but we need to get with a senior fireman or somebody that's been on that rig so we know what saw takes what fuel, how to mix the fuel 50 to 1. And a good way to tell is, if the motor doesn't have a dipstick, then it takes premixed fuel. Okay, review question. What actions can a firefighter take to stay safe while performing forcible entry? What would be an action we can do to stay safe?
PPE.
PPE. Appropriate PPE.
Choosing the right tool for the job.
Objected for forcible entry carrying tools, but we'll go over again because some of them I didn't touch, like the pipe holes and stuff like that. Pick-headed axe. He's got axe into his armpit and he's got his hand over the pit in case he was to fall. So that's the same as how I showed you to carry the flathead, just we need to have our hand over the pit. Let's see, pike pole. He's carrying a long pike pole there, but the pike always shoots towards the ground, so we're not trying to walk up and stab somebody or swinging it in the air. So pike pole goes down to the ground. He's got combined tools is what they're called, so the married set. So he's got the Halligan and the flathead married together, and he's got the horn facing down, and the other side is tucked way back here on the back side of his body, so nothing is exposed as he's walking. Striking tools, so that would be our flat-headed axe or sledgehammer. He's got the heavy end of the tool down towards the ground, traces right across his leg so it's not out swinging around. Power tools, He's carrying a chainsaw. He's got the the bar down, so the chainsaw is tipped down to the ground, so anything sharp on that edge of the saw is gonna be closer down to the ground, so you can't walk into somebody with it. So, review question, how should each of the following tools be carried? An axe, how should an axe be carried?
Under your armpit,
Under your armpit, that's right.
with your hand taped over the pig. It's a pickaxe.
That's right. Describe how to clean and maintain forcible entry tools. So in the fire service, any sort of tool that we use, what's our go-to cleaning?
Mild soap and hot dirty.
Mild soap and cool water. So any of these tools, we're gonna make sure that while we're cleaning them, we're gonna take that flat-headed axe, we're gonna hose it off, we're gonna get all of its dirt off, if we need to scrub some of the dirt, we're gonna scrub it off, and then we're gonna overlook the tool to look for any sort of cracks, damage, anything like that. If the axe head needs repainted, we repaint it. Care and maintenance of forcible entry tools. The tool will function as designed if properly maintained. Tool failure can result in delays, injury, or death. Always follow manufacturer's guidelines. Damaged or excessively worn tools should be removed from service, tagged, and sent out for repair. Tools will function as designed if properly maintained. I talked about on Halligan keeping those 3 points sharp, a file on those points every now and then after they get used, keeping them nice and sharp will go a long ways to make sure it will function as designed. Maintaining tools with wooden handles. We don't have wooden handles with Springfield anymore, but if we did, we would go over wood handle maintenance. We want to rinse, wipe. We look for cracks, anything else like that. The big one on the wood tool is what do we put on our wood handle tools?
Linseed
Boiled linseed oil. So we would coat it with boiled linseed oil after we're done cleaning it. Maintaining hand tools with fiberglass handles. Wash with mild detergent, then rinse. Check for damage. Check for tightness of the tool head. So, on our fiberglass ones, this is filled with epoxy up top, so it's in pretty tight. The wood ones have wedges that you drive into. The wood ones are pretty typical for wedges to work themselves out over a period of time. How we maintain a cutting edge, inspect for chips, cracks, and spurs, replace axe head when required, file the cutting edges by hand, sharpen blades as specified by SOPs, ensure the axe head is not torn or too thin or too thick. Sharpen blades as specified by SOPs. What do we do with our chains for our rescue saws? How do we sharpen them? Send them off. We send them to a qualified steel rep that does all of our sharpening on them. So we don't do it in-house, but that's our SOP for that. Never apply paint to the cutting edge of an axe head. This may cause the cutting surface to stick and bind. Unprotected metal surfaces. Use metal file to remove burrs. Use emery cloth or steel wool to remove dirt and rust. Pretty simple, pretty standard. Oil the surface lightly and avoid any protectant that contains 111 trichlorine. Do not apply oil to the striking surface. We don't want it to be slick. Do not paint metal surfaces. Inspect metal for chips, cracks, burrs, or sharp edges and file them off if there is some. Why must forcible entry tools be regularly cleaned and decontaminated and maintained?
in order to function as they were meant to.
In order to function as they were properly designed. Describe forcible entry methods through doors. Provide a way to open doors without forcible entry. This is our rapid entry lock box. Mounted at high visibility locations, use a master key. So master key is carried on the rig that is stored into a lockbox on the rig. You have to have a certain code to get it out. Once you get that key out, it goes into the lock box, you open it, and it allows you keys provided by the building owner to get into their vehicle, or get into their building. So we're going through the lock, just like everyone else, not destroying anything. Critical during forcible entry, ventilation, profile changes and adversely affects fire behavior. Take steps to deal with fire behavior if the change is necessary. Firefighter stationed at the door to control the door, and only prop door open if closing the door would block egress. So this is the function of controlling the door, provides all kinds of benefits, or adversely affect us if we're not controlling the door. So controlling the door is important. Gaining access to the property. Types of fences and gates: wood, masonry, chain link, ornamental metal, plastic, barbed wire, wire fabric, security gate, and electric lock. Fencing hazards are essentially the same. Wood, we're talking a chainsaw with wood blade, sawzall. Masonry, ornamental metal. You're talking your rotor saw with a metal blade. Barbed wire. Talking your bolt cutters. So various tools for various ways to get in. Gaining access to the property, forcing a gate. Cut with a rotor saw or bolt cutters, go over the fence instead of through it if that's a possibility. Lockbox or keypad code. Pry the gate open or use the apparatus bumper. Force the padlock or the chain. Anytime we're going to cut it, if something is chained together with a padlock, it would behoove you to cut the chain, not the padlock, because then you can still re-secure the chain if you're leaving and not destroying the lock, because then it won't be able to be re-secured. Some gates on commercial sites may be provided with special padlocks and or electric key switches that are operated with the same used to access the lock boxes. So we will put that code in the lock box and you configure it, or that will read you the code to get in. Door locks, latches, and locking devices, Mortise locks, cylindrical locks, high security locks, rim locks. This is going to be more of the stuff that we're going to try and go through, at least a little less invasively. This is showing you a Mortise lock, got a handle, picture where your key goes up top. This is your latch that throws itself out. Pretty simple door latch. Got a lock bolt and a lock latch. Cylindrical lock, key in the knob, typical handle you'll see on residentials. Key goes in, this will be the interior that you push button lock, so. Got the strike plate on the outside. Pretty simple standard door handle right there. Cylindrical lock with the tubular deadbolt. So we're talking, you got your handle down low. On your exterior doors, you have that deadbolt up top. You just turn that needle and it throws the deadbolt out. So you can tell what position it's in most of the time with the way the cylindrical lock is. If it's up and down, it's unlocked. If it's horizontal, it will be locked. The easiest way to breach modern deadbolts in a wooden residential door is to force the door itself. So we have a couple of rim locks: night latch, deadbolt, vertical lock. That's what you're going to lock at night. High security locks. So this is showing, this is an electronic one, so you have to put in a code to throw the lock. This over here is going to be your bars. So it's got bars that are built inside the door that shoot up and out and down, and that reinforces 4 points of the door. And then you've got your lock that goes down on the top side of these glass doors. They're called electromagnetic locks, and it has magnets that pull the door or hold the door closed. Typical lock, pretty simple. Key goes in the bottom. Obviously, you're not going to try and force here. That's the hardest part. You're gonna try and go through the skinnier lock portion. The shackle is what it's called. More locking devices. These are your home built drop bars, door limiter, what you see on all your hotels, door chains, old school version of a door limiter. What types of locks and locking devices are firefighters likely to encounter?
Deadbolts.
Deadbolts. Deadbolts, residential door handles, chain latches, night locks, stuff like that. Pretty standard.
Is there, like the door you were showing that had the lock going up and down and side to side, is there, like, is that indicated when you walk up to a door or just so?
I would say it's not indicated until you start to force the door and realize that it's, because when you put your tool in, you want to go right near the door. You want to go into the jamb right near the handle or where the lock would be, because that's where your door is going to have all of its resistance. But if you go try that and you get resistance through the entire door, you would know there's another form of internal lock. Sounding the door probably on a metal door or something like that, you would know. Let's see what's in our coordinating forcible entry and door control. So obviously you can force this door. If you've got to go ahead and force this door, you get the door force, but you control the door by pulling it back. Forcible entry creates ventilations. Ventilation openings, we talked about that. Forcible entry must be coordinated with interior activities. So guys inside fighting fire that might have went through a different door, you're trying to come in, you don't want to change their flow path. Keep door closed unless tactics require it open. That's what we're talking about, coordinating with fire attack. Breaking glass. Breaking door glass to reach interior locks. So we're trying to do a little bit more or less invasive damage. Breaking glass may be difficult and costly. Most times these doors are more expensive than just regular wood door. Ordinarily shatters into sharp fragments, so that's a safety concern to be aware of as we break the door. Glass is a barrier to ventilate. There's a barrier to ventilation, so as soon as we break that glass, we no longer have door control. So that's one big thing to keep in mind when you're about to break glass on a house that's on fire. Once it's broke for the remainder of the operation. So if we have this door right here, and these are individual little pieces of glass, instead of smashing them, we would want to try and break this piece of glass to put our hand in to be able to unlock the door, open the door. So minimal breaking on the door is the best possible scenario. Forcing swinging doors. Telltale sign on doors, we look for the hinges. The hinges will tell you interior or inward or outward. If you see the hinges, the door swings towards you. If you cannot see the hinges, the door swings away. So if I see the hinges on this door, I have the hinges and I see them, so the door swings towards me. That's right. If I look at that door and I see nothing but a handle, that means the hinges are inward, or that means the hinges are interior, that door is going to swing away from me. So, anytime you force the door, that's the key thing to look for. Inward swinging door, one firefighter method. He's holding the Halligan here, so we're going to use the Halligan to force this door. Inward swinging door, two firefighter method. So now we went to, he has the Halligan again, but he's going to have a guy with some sort of striking tool behind him that's going to strike the door for him. Outward swinging door. That broke TV really changes it. This is him forcing a door. This is an outward swinging door where he's about to cut with the saw on some hinges. Double swinging door. So we've got commercial building, got two metal doors that come together, locks in the middle. He's going to sink his saw down. He's going to cut right through the middle of them and cut the lock. Doors with drop bars. I talked about this homemade drop bars or older doors. Use a ram bar or a Halligan to separate the space between the doors and insert a tool and knock the bar out of the stirrups. Use a rotary saw to cut the bar. Insert a rotary saw blade through the opening and out of the security bar. If you want to avoid breaking the glass, you can also use the through the lock method to open tempered plate glass doors. What methods can be used to force swinging doors?
1 man or 2
1 man or 2 man? What the Mary said. Forcing security doors and gates, types, roll-up doors with steel bars, doors with multiple slats that close to form a solid panel. A technique for it would be cut off the padlock, cut an opening near the lock, cut out a section of the door. So security doors and gates, or where we find roll-up doors, and this essentially would be like storage units. Some fire doors can be roll-up doors, anything like that. Through the lock forcible entry, we talked about it a couple times, a little less invasive. So we're going to size up door and lock mechanism, unscrew or remove the locking cylinder, or insert a key tool to open the lock. Through the lock forcible entry. This is a K tool. Here's the tool here. It's a big square. Resembles a K. This is dimensional here. There's a little groove that slides and grabs the lock, and then you strike it down and it rips the lock off. A tool. Got a crotch over here. Big set of forks, and you drive it behind that lock in the cylinder. Rips the lock off. Shove knife. You get the little flat piece of metal that slides in. Here's our lock, here's our door jamb. He's going to shove that knife in and pull it back and grab that locking mechanism that slides, and he'll be able to open it. Forcing padlocks. Duck bill, lock breaker, hammerhead, chain pliers here, hockey puck, icebreaker, lock breaker. So basically those are just anything to grab the lock, be able to break it off. But another way to force a padlock would be just a rotor saw with a metal blade and cut right through it.
Can you get a padlock off with Howling bar?
You can get a padlock off with a Howling bar if you put the horn in it, and you can drive the horn with a striker tool and break through that shackle of that padlock. Cutting high security padlocks. You want to stabilize the lock with locking pliers, attach a chain to the lock and pull it away from the hasp. Second firefighter cuts both sides of the shackle. They're talking about taking like a vice grips, grabbing the lock, you have a chain on the end of that vice grips, and the firefighter holds it away while the other firefighter either cuts that lock or forces through it with a Halligan like we just talked about. But that's how you hold the lock, so you're still in a safe position away from the lock. How can various tools be used to force entry through door locks and padlocks? We just talked about it. Fire doors, forcing fire doors. Designed to cover doorway openings and rated separation walls to prevent a spread of fire from one building to another. Sliding, swinging, or overhead varieties, normally found inside structures. Always found inside structures too. Nursing homes, stuff like that. Enclosing hazardous process of storage. So, they would be storing chemicals behind them. Fire door. Also, a roll-up door. So we talked about forcing a roll-up door. Most of the time we see them on fire doors. When passing through a opening that a fire door protects, block the door open to prevent it from blocking egress or cutting off the hose line. That door is naturally designed to fall when the alarm is triggered. So obviously whenever it falls, if we're going through it, we need to prop it open if we want to try and stay through it, otherwise it's going to fall right back down. Part of the structure's protection system. Fire doors may need to be forced. Force like a roll-up door. Positioned to create sections with higher than normal fire resistance rating. Leaving fire doors in place is preferred. Use caution when propping open or forcing because it changes the flow path. Why would we want to, prefer to just leave it in place? Because it protects, prevents, it's doing its job containing fire to certain areas. So if we open it, then it's not going to be able to do its job. Alright, that's the end of the slideshow. So, I'm going to hit a couple basics on our policies. How much time do we have before we... Purpose of this policy. The subject is forcible entry. City of Springfield, under the policy and procedure. The purpose is to give guidance to the fire department personnel when faced with the need to force entry into a structure. When faced with a situation where the company officer reasonably believes that there is a need to force entry in order to save lives or property, entry should be made. For example, after knocking loudly, seeing someone lying on the floor not moving, it would suggest a need to force entry, while may not need to be made. Or arriving for an alarm sounding but nothing is visible from any window might suggest forcible entry may not need to be made. If there is uncertainty under whether entry should be made, you contact the battalion chief for direction. The steps would be the company officer should verify that they are at the correct address and should check for a Knox box at the premises, including verification through dispatch. So first step is we have to confirm we are at the given address is the right one that the call should be at. We have to look for a Knox box. If the company officer has reason to believe that there is an entry might be objected to, opposed, or interfered with, the police department should be requested to respond. When forcing entry, consideration should be made between the damage being done and the urgency of the time in gaining entrance. Example, during a working fire, breaking a door to gain entrance quickly to limit damage may be prudent. Conversely, when seeing someone unconscious on the floor, breaking the glass pane and unlocking the door may be the best method. So they're talking about key holders en route. We're going to be 5 minutes away. We really want to break the door, we just wait for a key holder. Photographs should be taken, which may necessitate contacting the on-duty fire marshal or the battalion chief. Prior to leaving the property, attempts should be made to contact the owner or occupant to explain the situation. Should the owner or occupants inquire about damages or potential claims, they should be referred to Phil Barber in the law department phone number, and the company officer should then attempt to contact him prior to leaving the scene. When forcible entry has been made and the owner or occupant has not been able to be contacted, information should be left in a prominent location on the premises indicating the fire department forced entry. Reasonable care should be taken to protect and secure the property. This might include placing plastic over a broken window, re-nailing a jamb, etc. Not breaking the padlock, the chain, so we can re-secure the chain. Upon returning to the fire station, the firehouse report narrative should fully explain the circumstances surrounding the decision, including the thoughts at the time of arrival, what was observed, what was done, and why. So, you have to narrate all your thoughts in Firehouse. That's the first step. Second step, any photographs should be attached to the report. A supervisor's incident report will be completed. Prior to the end of the shift, a copy of the report shall be forwarded through inter-office mail to the head of the law department and the assistant chief of operations. So that's our policy for what we have to do in order to force entry into the structure. We're going to take the end of course test, and then we will grade it, and then we will practice, or we will do a practical scope going through an inward swinging door and an outward swinging door. I need.
Thank you.
questions?
What's the 13th, 14th?
Today is the 13th. No cheating and you'll be kicked out. We have to maintain test security.
Yes, sir.
You're stuck. No. Okay. Gotta figure things out now that you seen the results.
The rest of the class?
You what?
You're all gonna be the rest of the class?
Yeah, here I'll show, since I showed Cook his test, I'll show Marcus.
Oh, good job. Sounds like a teacher.
Yeah. And yeah, and then if you guys want to get your appropriate PPE, I've got earplugs and safety glasses, but we'll need gloves and helmet.
Coming back here.
Yes, sir. All tests completed and graded, and scores were shown to the student privately to respect privacy of the test.
Plus notes.
Yes.
You said bring cut, didn't you?
You can.
I thought you did all that. Here you go, Tucker, you got yours, and yours here. And next year.
All right.
Sorry.
Practical skill I'll read is force entry into a structure through a door. The outcome, the candidate shall be able to properly force entry into a structure through a locked door using one or more of the provided forcible entry tools. Given a selection of forcible entry tools, an entry door, and in full PPE, the candidate shall demonstrate the ability to select the correct tool, safely carry the selected tool to the door, try the door to ensure the door is locked before forcing, correctly size up the door, choose the appropriate technique, use hand and eye protection, clear opening of obstacles. So, we can use this door. Obviously, we're not going to tear the door open. Tools to use. I'll go over how to appropriately force the door first. So we have our Al again. We come to the door, we recognize the door, we recognize its hinges are towards me. So with the hinges towards me, that means it is going to swing out towards me. So that means that door, this handle is going to want to come towards. So my mechanical advantage is going to be which direction? I'm going to want to push towards the door or pull away. Pull away. So the way we will want to force this door is we will come up with the adze, we will put it into the jam, we will try and pry it left or up and down to try and create a gap. And then our goal is we can either try and slide this adze behind the jam and pull out and pry the door open that way, or we will take our forks with our sharp edge in towards the door, and we will get it into the gap, and then we will have our partner strike this tool to force force this, and as we're forcing it in, we're gonna kind of push away from it a little bit so as to not drive it straight into the jam, but to go past the jam. And once we get it sank into our line here, we know that we're past our door jam. We will force that door away, and it should pry that door open. So, when we're striking, two ways to strike on this tool. With this being put in, we can have a halogen heat, or hold the halogen horizontal, have an axe up top, slide, and smash these shoulders. So there's a striking point. Other striking point's going to be the edge of the adze down here where we can shoot straight, put the force all the way down the tool. If we're using the adze end to force with, call this the bevel, go bevel to the jam, tool goes in, take the flathead axe or sledgehammer, drive against the back of the adze, forcing that in. If this is the way you're going to do it with a single man, as you're driving that in, you want to use your arm and you want to pull out on this as to miss the jam again. So you start striking that tool, your striking tool against your adze as you're pulling out, driving that tool into the designated mark on our tool again. So, striking tool, prying tool, up against my arm, up against the body, and I'm going to strike this tool as I pull out to drive into that door. That shows your depth, how far you want to drive in that you're trying to capture. You want your adze or your forks to go past this door on the inside. That way when you go to push, they're pulling that door out. So, that would be a inward or a outward swinging door. Inward swings it towards you. So, here is our assortment of tools. We would like to simulate forcing the door first. We're not going to strike the tool. We'll do one person at a time, and then we'll simulate two people. So you're choosing your appropriate sets of tools. You're going to show me how you can carry them to the door. First thing we do when we get to the door.
Right before I pry.
Yes, sir.
Door's locked.
Okay. Once we decide the door is locked and there is a need to force the door, how do we correctly size up the door?
First thing you can do is look at the hinges.
Okay.
And it will tell you which way the door goes, in or out.
Okay.
The door has hinges on the outside, so I know it's going to swing towards me.
Okay. An appropriate technique, because you're by yourself, is the one firefighter
method.
And you have your hand and eye protection
And hearing.
and hearing.
Sound the door.
Sound the door.
It's going to want to swing this way because the hinges are on this side.
Okay.
So I'm going to take the adze in, force it in, and try to pry up and down to create a purchase point.
Yes, sir.
At that point, I'm by myself. The easiest way for me to do this is after I've created the purchase point, put my adze end in, hit the flathead axe.
Okay.
As I'm hitting and pulling away, trying to miss the inside of the jam with the stop.
Okay.
Drive until I get past that,
Okay.
and then pull the door and force it.
Yes, sir. And then what do we do whenever we force the door?
Close it back.
Just close the door. Perfect.
Alright, so we already handled that, so we're gonna properly carry our tools, we're gonna size up our door, hinges are on that, I can see the hinges, so I know the door's gonna swing towards me. We're gonna try before I pry, verify that the door is locked. So, like you said, bevel to the jam, we're gonna twist it to try to make it a purchase point. As we do that, and use the flathead part of the axe to drive your adze in that point, you will off the lock, and the door will open, and you capture the presence.
Okay.
of the door.
And once we get the door forced, let's control the door.
Yeah, that's a.
Perfect. Right on.
Right set, separated, very safely, comes down, comes to the door. Side of the door, grab it pretty proud, it's locked, got outwards, got slope or hinges that I can see, tell them that swings towards me. We got them with the adds in, since it's one end, makes a gap, that's a purchase point, and out, and out, right brush the door. That point. Simply hit it in. Tap, tap, all the way to the indicated point. Something like that. Force the door. Control it. Ventilation.
Perfect. Perfect.
Alright, now we'll do.
I'll do downward swinging.
Yeah, we'll do that door, I guess, since it's closed.
Yeah, you can just put it on that table and just move it over this.
Here, or I could even just swivel this.
What's the time on?
133.
All right.
Just a big down on that, make it work good.
All right. Outward swinging door. We know because
You can't say
it can't have any hinges. We know that the doors are always going to typically be latched in the middle. We know that one obviously because we have the door release catch right here, but it seems to be locked because we tried before we pry. So we come over here and realize we need the ability, or we need to force this door. So we walk up with our married set split, appropriately carrying our tools. I'm gonna walk up to this door, single person forcing of this door. We're gonna force, figure out where the structure integrity of our door is. It wiggled up top and down low, so I know that the point of attack is gonna be right here in the middle. One good way I like to force this door would be you slide this in, and if you get that adds in, and if the door is weak enough, with one good heavy push, mechanical advantage, pushing in towards the door, I can force that door, and if it's weak enough, the lock will just blow right open. If I feel like the door will go, but I need more mechanical advantage, I can use another tool as the New York hook to gain against this Halligan to put me out here, and I can really get this door to force open. But if I try this method and the door has more strength than I feel like I can get through, we go back to our fork end. So start with the bevel to the door on a outward swinging door, and it's the same deal as the inward swinging door, just tools reversed. So I have my forks into the jamb, bevel to the door, and as I try to work this tool around, I'm trying to grab the back. So once I get a good bite down in there, use my striking tool to strike against this tool to really drive this door in. Once I get it sink down to my line, then I'll use mechanical advantage and I will pull this door towards me and it will blow the door open. So I'm trying to grab the back of this jamb. I'm trying to use mechanical advantage to force this door open. Once I get the door forced open, and the door goes open, I want to make sure that I bring it back to control the door. That would be the one-person method, and then I guess after that we'll go over the two-person method. Given your tools in an area, appropriate PPE.
I've got appropriate PPE on. I'm walking up to the door. I don't see any hinges, so I know it's an outward swing door. I'm gonna try before I try. The door's locked. Load the door. So take my ads and try to get a purchase point. If I can get in far enough, I may be able to just use the ads in and force the door this way. Sometimes you can also go up and down and get a door force. If that's not gonna work, I'm gonna stick the forks in. Drive past the jam. Then I'm going to take the howl in, pull back, and force the door. After it's forced and open, and I'll recalibrate it back.
Alright, I've got my appropriate PPE on. Got a married set of tools. Come to the door. Size up the door. Same time, drop the door fry. It's locked. That time I'll look, reassess my door. No hinges, indicating it's going to swing outward. Going to sound the door to find out where weak points are at. 1, 2, 3. So on this door would indicate move here, move here, be locked here. Got the first message, which would be the ads in, down, try to crush the door, make somewhere where I can make a good purchase point. If that doesn't work, grab that in for one man, push it there. I need more mechanical advantage, go the other way, force it in, as best as I can. Again, using my striking tool. Something like this. All the way to the crotch, or to the indicated point. That point, force the door. Same time, force the door for ventilation path.
Alright, so we have all our appropriate PPE on. We come up to our door here. There's no hinges, so it indicates an outward swinging door. Try before you try. Verify that the door is locked. Doing the one-person method. You'll use your ads in. Or I guess we'll sound the door first. 1, 2, 3. Nothing up here or down here. Indicate the lock, tell you where to attack the door. Take your ads in, try to crush it, get your purchase point. Doing that, you can either pull back or push, whatever you feel the need to do. If you need more mechanical advantage, you flip your tool to your forks using the axe. You can bury it to the bevel, or bury it to the crotch, or to the line, to wherever is behind the jam. Doing that, then you can force the door.
Two-person method, what do we need to be considered of when doing a two-person method? Communication and hands, fingers. So two-person method operates the same. We still want to crush to get our purchase point. So we crush. As I'm in here, say I have enough, and I'm pulling back on this tool, my partner is going to do all of the striking, and I just do all of the mechanical advantage moving with the prying tool. So whenever I say strike, he gives it a hit, then I'm making sure that I'm not up here, in his way, up here, never holding here. And another key point with this tool, anytime we're forcing a door or doing any sort of prying, we're obviously not between the tool and the door. So we're always operating on the back side of the door. So I tell him to strike, and then strike, and then strike, and he only hits one hit every time I strike, or I tell him to drive. Drive means he's going to continually hit this until I tell him to stop. So at that point, whenever I tell him to stop, we should be past the jam on the inside with the adze, and then he can either come up here and help me pull with this tool, or if I have it far enough and I pry it myself, we're good to go. So, another deal on this tool, when you're driving with the adze, with the forks in the jam, bevel to the jam. So remember, door swinging inward, bevel to the jam, door swinging outward, bevel to the door. So same deal on striking, same term, same words. Strike means one, drive means continually hit, stop means he stops. And I want to hold this tool here. I don't want to hold this tool here. I want to stay nice and protected, typically, further down point. Another thing here is I want to stay hidden behind this horn, because that gives a whole 4 inches of buffer that he can't strike me. Same deal here, 4 inches of buffer behind the adze that he can't strike me. So this is kind of my safety net. And as he's driving down this tool, I'm pushing away, because if I stand here and hold this, it's going straight into the jam, and I'm not going to gain anything once I sink it into that jam. So as he's driving, he's keeping in his mind, knowing that I'm trying to move this tool. So as he's going, I'm moving this tool down, and as you can see a little bit with this, I'm separating the door from the jam horizontally. So that gives me just enough gap that as he strikes this, I'll be able to lock this tool around, get past the jam, and then we'll blow it open. So, yeah, you guys want to take turns being in that position or just talking through it, then
Mark, striker, same exact thing. Outward facing hinges, so no comes towards us. We'll try before we fry. We'll sound the door. 1, 2, 3. Have him come up. Try to crush the door. Try to make as much space as we can. That. I'll simulate him striking again. So hit, hit, stop there. Control the door. The door gives us a little more problems than that. We can use more mechanical advantage, same setup. Got a pretty dry, sound it. 1, 2, 3. So we'll do the door. Simulate. This time we'll have him hit. Simulate driving. Stop. Force it out. Open that falling door as we go. Perfect.
All right, we got PPE. We're gonna do a 2-man breach here. Make sure the door is locked. Sound the door. Try to gain a purchase point. Hit, drive, stop. And then past the jam. Just lever swing back, open the door, go back.
Perfect.
Can't do it that way, we use the forks. Inward door, the forks go in. drive. I'm gonna pass the jam, try, open the door. Shut the door back.
Alright, we all have all our proper PPE on, identified for this is ingress main door, because the hinges are towards you. We're gonna demonstrate a two-person method. The first method we'll use is using that adds in. So, I'll try to get my purchase point with my firefighter here. I'll have him hit the Halligan, hit, drive, stop, until you get to, past the line or you feel yourself past the jam. You open the door, use mechanical advantage, and control the door. Another way we can do it, again, try before you try. Bevel goes towards the jam on this one, because we'll use our forks. Get to a purchase point. Have your firefighter communication, we'll do a hit, drive, stop. So you feel it go past the crotch or wherever you need to. You feel like you have the appropriate mechanical advantage, and pry the door open. And again, you'll control the flow path like you will.
I figured it was your feet you got it. Same deal over there. We don't have to walk through all of it, but it's the same deal when you go to force. The only other thing I was gonna add would have been utilizing the shoulders of this tool. So we get into an area, kind of a weird situation or something where we don't have this distance back here to work. This guy, my partner, can come up and I sink this where I need to be, hold my hand down here, and he just force it down here, and he puts his tool here, slides it down the shoulders, and he smacks against these shoulders of these forks to drive this tool home. So, doesn't work on this end, but we don't try to drive this end forward, so. But that's why those are there. Maintain, like I said, small gaps like that. We want to try to make sure we keep these nice and sharp, keep them clean of burrs and everything else, but we want to maintain this point, and then these shoulders, you want to make sure they're nice and flat. We want to make sure we always maintain our marks on our tool to make sure we know what depth to sink our tool into. Alright, I think that's about it. Do we have any questions? Any questions about the class? We have a little bit more time to finish before we tear down the room. I gotta show you guys your skill or your score on your skill. You guys want to go put your stuff away? That'd work. Your PPE. Yeah.
you have an example of that, what was the tool you showed us? That you cut a lock off with?
Gate tool?
Do you have an example of one of those?
Yeah, we're going on the rescue.
Is there one?
Yeah. You know where it's at, you can bring it in here.
Yeah.
I mean,
So would you use a wedge? Can you use a wedge to help?
yeah. A lot of guys carry metal wedges, wood wedges, and stuff like that in their helmet or their hat. So wedges indoors are all just about gaining more space for tools and capturing progress,
Yeah.
capturing gaps. So any wedge would help drastically. Yeah, that's good. Keep in mind.
Do it.
Forcible entry tools.
Ooh. You got 4 minutes. 6 seconds.
Shove knife. So through the lock, this is a little pick tool for the lock. Elevator keys. But shove knife, that's what we talk about shoving in jam. Allen wrench. Another elevator key. K tool on the rescue. You can see.
It doesn't look like a K.
Looks like a K. This is the detent or the groove that we slide this in order to make the tool work and actually give it something to hit on. That goes over your lock. Allen goes down in, or the adze goes down in, and this guy with the striking tool strikes on the back of the head, strikes down here, anywhere up here obviously is going to work, preferably right here, and it just essentially cuts the lock off of the door, destroying the lock. Also in this pouch, another shove knife. So this is more of your least invasive,
Like a
respectful entry into a house. More little lock picks and stuff like that. Another striking tool. Mr. Cook brought up a good point, wedges. When we go to force doors and everything, the striking tool is a massive wedge itself, but progress capture. So if we force a door, if we had a wedge with us, we can catch progress as we go. Carry on your belt. So wedges used for progress capture, prop doors open, roll up doors, anything like that. How do we force roll up doors? Cut them. That's about it.
you ever, you said these were elevator keys? Elevator keys. Did you ever use a saw on an elevator?
Most elevators are gonna have doors that you would, this elevator key, this one or this one would use, so you put in, turn, hit the lock, and the door opens, but if you could not get the door open, you're only defeating that lock, so I would assume you could pry it open, or you could cut. I mean,
Just a last resort kind of thing.
last resort kind of thing, but yeah, I guess you can definitely cut it open. I mean, cutting anything is gonna be a last resort, but if you need to get into something, you need to get into something, so. You use it on this one?
Thank you, Mr. Fox. You've been a very good teacher.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Who developed this little thing? I think it's groups.
I see, is that just a massive shove knife?
I'll show you, I'll find the door.
She.
You get on this door. Try to get behind it. Yeah. It's a fancy.
Just like using a credit card.
Yeah, you try to jam it in back here.
Alright, you guys are all done. You can come up here and I'll show you your ending class score, and then you guys can.
show me mine.
Okay. Right there.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Look at yours. Look at you.
Oh, wow. Man, good teacher.
All right, Tucker, this is your last deal.
Instructor Buck.
Rescue Specialist Tucker.
Yes.
All right.